We're live.
All right.
All right, Don, we are live. How you doing? Happy Monday. Victory Monday. Victory Monday. Yeah, it's Miami part 3. You
3. Hey.
Yeah, there you go, right? Kind of ironic. You posted something last night, or you sent me something last night that kind of jarred some talk on Twitter, and I thought would be a nice little start here before we have former Bills safety Kurt Schulz join us to talk the week that was and the week coming up. He played a prominent role in the 1995 first round playoff game against the Dolphins. So we'll get to that in a little bit.
He ended Schulz's career. That was it.
That's right. That was it. And he brought in Jimmy Johnson after that, another fan favorite. So anyway, so last night you had the ticket.
Yeah.
The ticket stub from the 1990.
I should have brought it with me, but it's, if anyone watching, it's the ticket stub on the thumbnail there.
Yeah, and at ifbuffalo.com
right
on Twitter. So you were in the ticket office in 1990. Our show, the premise was to compare the 1990 season with this year's team and the expectations and how, the two seasons really kind of lined up from the 2 years before. And I did just a tad bit of research last night, and a pretty amazing coincidence that both teams ended up 13-3. Obviously, with the the cancellation last week, you would have never thought that would happen, that they'd have the same record. The other thing is that in 1990, their point differential was 165, and in this year, their point differential ended up at 169. So literally within 4 points of each other,
virtually the same.
Yeah, virtually the same. So I know there's a lot of talk about how the Bills have struggled, the Bills have faced unprecedented challenges. This season and 1990 really do parallel each other in terms of results on the field. How dominant they were. I know there are times that it doesn't feel like they were dominant. There's frustrating series halves, games, but when you take a 35,000 foot look at it, they really ended up almost in the exact same position as 1990, except for not getting the 1 seed.
It's incredible. I mean, Josh, when we started this, we had enough to go on to establish a premise that there's this parallel between the two seasons. And as the season went forward, that was before the kickoff, against the Rams on opening night.
Yep.
As the season unfolded, more just kept,
the
Miami.
Yeah,
in Miami.
The Miami parallels are the most amazing thing. For people who haven't heard our show or don't know, in 1990, the Bills were the consensus favorite to get out of the AFC, but the one thing that had tripped them up was not having home field advantage. So they went to Miami week 2. Miami was obviously their rival in the AFC East, and they lost. And they lost pretty badly. Miami kind of controlled the standings in the division for most of the season.
It was hot.
It was real hot. Yeah, it was a similar type game.
Right.
So they came back here. They had a late December game. Frank Reich had to step in and play for Jim. The Bills won, clinched the division, and then, ironically enough, they ended up facing each other in round 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, in Buffalo.
Buffalo. So that's what prompted your ticket post last night. What are your memories of the week leading up to that game in 1990?
Well, it's funny. First of all, when we texted, you said, "Hey, that's cool. Do you have a ticket from that game that showed Miami?" And no, because it exists. Because the tickets had to be printed up before you knew who the opponent was.
Right.
And then if the games didn't happen, we still had to buy the tickets from the people that printed them. We didn't print them in the ticket office itself. So it was a lot of work. It was a ton of work. Just before we went on, I called Renzi, who I used to work with. They kind of broke me to the ticket office. She might actually call because I didn't tell her to not call between now and noon. So, but we want to have her on, and maybe some other ticket office folks later in the week, just to talk about it. It was a heavy lift. We were there from 6 in the morning till midnight, eating pizza and wings.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about family. We had no choice. The ticket office was in a vault. These are hard tickets. They could be replaced. So they were literally, it was like a bank. There was no windows. John Butler and Bill Polian used to come down there to smoke. they just come down, grab candy. They were all nervous, and they would smoke. The walls were yellow, the ceiling was yellow.
Hilarious.
But they didn't smoke anywhere else in the building. Came down to the ticket office to do it, where we had no windows and no doors.
Yeah, the ticket office was kind of like a bunker. It was
a bunker,
not not glamorous. Like you
No.
probably didn't feel like you worked at the Bills, quite a bit. And then so all the cash there too, right? Like because people would come in and pay cash.
A lot of cash. I had to go. I was one of the people that get to the. I had to take a police officer with me.
Wow. How much? Do you remember $100,000?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
In a day, 70, 80. I mean, just bags of cash. It was short of being those like cartoon bags with big bulky things with the dollar signs on them. But I mean, we had to tell them when they were coming because they would the Fleet Bank in Orchard Park. They actually bought money counting machines just because of us.
Wow. Yeah. And obviously the playoffs were when compressed sales all happened. Now, did they sell tickets before the game or did they wait until like Monday morning? Because you couldn't, if you sold those tickets and then refund them, it was a huge process back compared to what it would be today.
Yeah, no, you had to wait till the game was announced and then go on make an announcement on the news, not the internet, but they're going to on sale tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock and or say 8 o'clock. But we would have it there at 6. And already the parkets would be full. They'd have to have people directing traffic. The line, Josh, would go from the ticket office all the way halfway around the stadium.
I believe.
And it was cold.
Yeah, it's January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people didn't care. And they would come to the window, get their tickets.
Was it a limit of like 4?
There were limits. Season ticket holders got the first crack at them to buy extra. And then after that, like the second day, the people would, Karen can verify this, but then the general public would be able to get their own. But some people would cheer, they would cry, they were like, and news cameras were there, and they'd go up to their news camera and show their tickets, and this is a bucket thing for me, and it was pretty wild.
So the 1990, the team obviously was 13-3, ramping up for the playoff game against Miami. Was that? It feels like at that point, because they had the home game, the one home game in '88, but that felt like the biggest game. Jim Kelly was coming back. They had read their starters. They had the bye week.
Right.
So the anticipation for that game, it had built and built and built, and you were playing them for a third time, the rubber match. Like that was about as big of a game as they had ever had at that point.
I would say so. And the difference, maybe this is slight, this pulling hairs, but splitting hairs. In 1990. The Bills chased Dolphins longer, even though the record was great. It wasn't until it was a couple games later before the Bills finally surpassed the Dolphins, where here they did it maybe 2 weeks early. Essentially the same thing.
Sure. Hatred was real.
Oh, the hatred was yeah. We're hoping. I'm taking a little chance here, but I've had conversations with O.J. McDuffie, the former Dolphin, and he said he'd love to come on our podcast. So
he played in the 95 game.
He played in the 95 game.
Yeah. And speaking of the 95 game, we have former Bill Kurt Schulz, who's gonna just popped on here, and let me see if we can add him. Kurt, how you doing?
Good, guys. Don, how are you?
Hey, Kurt. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, my pleasure.
We were just reminiscing about Don's days in the ticket office selling hard tickets for the 1990 Bills Dolphins playoff game. You played in the 1995 Bills Dolphins playoff game.
I did.
And I remember that game as the Tyndale game. He had that amazing run up the middle. What's like when you first think about a Miami playoff game, Miami week, like what comes to mind for you?
Well, first off, facing Dan Marino every couple years, twice a year was difficult enough, but it was a lot of fun to play down in Miami, but certainly the rivalry was fresh and lot of fun, lot of emotions on both sides of the ball, I'm sure.
Yeah, we were just I've had some conversations this week with O.J. McDuffie, Kurt. I'm sure you remember coming here.
For sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just back up a bit. With your career, what you stepped into a Super Bowl team, and then to have this continuation of the rivalry with the Dolphins. And there's so much to unpack here too, because as a former Bills safety, and naturally that's a position that's got a lot of attention. I want to come back to the Dolphin game, but take us back to last Monday night for you, Kurt, watching that game and what your thoughts were and how things kind of played out, all the way even to like yesterday.
Yeah, well, I tell you, watching it was just horrific, right? Anybody, I can't imagine DeMar's parents sitting there, near the field, and I just can't even imagine. We deal with a lot of horrific injuries, but typically they're not life and death. And in that particular situation, your heart just sank, and I think, everybody, the staff, everybody reacted correctly. Like, hey, listen, football is secondary. Somebody's life's on the line. And it just, our defensive back group at the Bills, and when I was in Detroit, was pretty tight, so you do hang out with those guys like all day long. So you really get to know guys. And through training camp, I mean, for the better part of, 9 months, you've got a classroom worth of some buddies. And I just can't imagine, seeing that scene and then continue to play. It's horrific, but so happy that things turned around. And it's the game yesterday was outstanding, and just love it. Absolutely love it. Great turnaround.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself, do you watch most of the Bills games now? Do you root for them?
I do. I'm on the West Coast, so thankfully the Bills have been awesome. So they a lot of national televised games. But yeah, every chance I get, for sure. And it doesn't matter where I'm traveling. It seems like there's always a Bills bar somewhere you can pop your head in. And yeah, it's pretty cool. It's been pretty exciting the last few years, for sure. I mean, Josh Allen, how do you not just love the kid? And just with McDermott, the coach, everything, you name it. It's just really fun to be an alumni, to be a part of this. It gives me chills to think about it. It's great. I hope the best and during the playoffs, but more importantly, it seems like it's just a great crew of people, and I just wish the best for them.
Yeah. Now, where are you on the West Coast again? Because I knew you were in Buffalo for quite a while.
Yeah. No, I was for many years. It was about a year and a half ago, I guess, I moved to Bellevue, Washington. Yeah, right. My boys are still back east. I get to see them a decent amount. One's in Philly, one's in New York City. But I uprooted and here on the West Coast now, near some family, and so it's been nice.
Well, you went to Eastern Michigan too, so that's
Eastern
Washington.
Well,
I didn't. I did. Sorry, I was just quizzing, Kurt. You did great. You remember where you went to college?
Yeah, Eastern Washington. Yeah, not too far from here. About 5 hours, but yeah, no, I grew up in Yakima, Washington, right in the middle of the state, and I got a big family, and so it's been nice to reconnect with some old friends and some of my family members, But yeah, no, I still get to watch, and I come back at East, quite often. So I'm definitely still a Bills fan. Will always be a Bills fan.
So when Don told me that you were coming on, I went on YouTube and watched some old games and some old clips, and I saw what I would consider, an unbelievable hit you had against Dallas, 1996. Herschel Walker kind of on a wheel route, and you met him at like the 1 yard line and stuffed him cold. Somehow he got onto the ball, but John kept going on and on about your hit. And I guess, seeing that hit after watching what happened last Monday night, my question for you is, were you ever scared? Like when you hit somebody, either for yourself or for them? I mean, you were clearly known as a hard hitter. Like did you ever worry about the guy you hit? If not for yourself?
You don't really have a lot of time to think about that, to be honest with you. It's such a fast game that those thoughts don't really come into your head. And I don't know if necessarily they can, for you to be effective. You can't really think about that. At least I couldn't. For me, it was just survival, right? Whether they're Herschel Walker, and thankfully he wasn't looking at me when I hit him. And just to back it up, the week before was a Monday night game that I think I got the Dirty Jock Award. So I was pumped. I had my high school buddies that were in the stands, and I was going to blow somebody up. So, but yeah, no, I don't think
about hygiene, is it right? Yeah. who gives that? What's that all about?
What's that?
What's that word all about?
Yeah, tell us about the Dirty Jock Award.
The Dirty Jock. Well, listen, I didn't think I had a horrible game. It was Monday night against Pittsburgh, And I think that Jerome Bettis met him at the 2-yard line. And of course, he ran over me for a touchdown. And I think I missed an interception, and they thought I should have. I think they put 21 points on me, which anyway, it was Chuck Dickerson at WGR 55, I think it was. And yeah, so I woke up, the next morning and got the Dirty Jock Award. So I was pumped to do something big the next week, especially with all my hometown buddies in the stands. I'm like, oh, I gotta hit somebody hard.
You sure John Madden kept going on and on about that hit. He was it was a great collision at the goal line.
It's a funny admission by Kurt too that that was a motivation to do something even more than what an opportunity. Yeah, send me the clip. I think I actually remember that, and you squared him up. The personal story about you, Kurt. You probably don't remember this, but it was late in your career, and I was playing in a couple of basketball leagues around the area. One was in West Seneca, and one was in the city with Bob Schatz and some of his friends from the office.
Yeah.
Okay, and in the city league, we were down a couple players, and during the day, Bob said, "Hey, Kurt Schulz is going to play with tonight." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's fantastic!" And so we get to the gym in the city, and our team was, pretty fundamental, a lot of backdoor stuff, pick and rolls,
YMCA ball, right?
Yeah, but we could hang with teams, but this one particular team had this guy, and you got there, and we said, "Man, this last time we played this team, they beat us by like 12, but that guy right over there, he had like 40 points. We just couldn't guard him." And it wouldn't shock me to find out that he, played at Canisius or UB or something. He was a ringer.
Right.
And you're like, "Look, you were being modest, but you said, I like basketball, but it isn't necessarily my game. But obviously I love defense. So I'll take them." We're like, awesome. So the game starts, and Kurt, I watched the guy. He was so frustrated. I don't think any of them recognized you, by the way, who you were.
That's funny.
And
I do remember the game, actually.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you shut him down. And literally, I remember hearing him a couple times, like, who is this guy? But it was, for me, such an example. You just said before, it's such a fast game. But as a professional athlete, amongst professional athletes, like it was such an illustration, just how fast you are, how competitive you are. You got every ball. But you're playing against guys of the same physical ability in a heightened atmosphere. The adrenaline's pumping, the crowd. Right. You can't hold back kind of what you're saying. You have to do what you're do, right?
Yeah, you really do. And just to back up a second, I did play high school basketball, but what I didn't tell you when I joined you guys, I averaged 5 fouls a game. So clearly basketball was not my forte.
You're the goon.
I liked the physical piece of it. And so, yeah, that's why I guess I averaged, close to 5 fouls a game, but no, that is, I mean, you're playing with just some phenomenal athletes, and it's the same in college. You play with some phenomenal athletes, but once you get to the pro, everybody's a phenomenal athlete. Everybody has a story. Everybody's quick, fast. I think what really kind of separates other than just the elite athletes, it's what's in here and here, that's really the difference, I think, because it's such an even playing field, speed wise, quickness wise, and you're going to get some anomalies out there, but it's an intense, and you can't think, you don't really get a chance to think a lot, and you don't want to think a lot because then you're not going to be very effective. If plays that you messed up go through your mind, during the game, you can't have that. You just have to be super clear, and you can't think. You have to react. You have to know, and it's just it's different. It's high intensity, that's for sure.
Do you have a scouting report or a memory of Don on the basketball court by chance?
Well, if I remember correctly, he's an athlete, and I can remember that, right? I mean, he could shoot, and so it was a long time ago, but I do recall that he was an athlete.
Yeah. It was about 20 pounds ago.
Probably wouldn't have wanted him in the defensive backfield with you, right?
Oh, no.
more of a slot receiver or an H-back kind of guy, right? That's probably
possession.
So let me. Yes, possession receiver. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
backup kickers.
speaking of that, so when we found out yesterday that we were going to play the Dolphins, my wife, who is a huge Bills fan and maybe listening right now, her first reaction was, oh man, those two receivers scare me. Obviously Hill and Waddle. And you're kind of the perfect person for me to ask, what goes through your head when you're playing a guy like Tyreek Hill, who is just, world-class speed. I mean, the speed is terrifying to a fan. If you're at the stadium, you can just tell that he runs different than even NFL guys. So, what's it like for you preparing for him mentally? Is the speed is it different with a guy like him than any other receiver, even if they're a great receiver?
I would add too, who maybe were guys like that you played against, that you can compare Hill to?
Yeah, well, there were a lot, but in regards to Tyreek Hill, just the speed and the quickness, you just have to respect that, right? And so when you respect somebody, you give them a cushion, right? You need to build yourself a little margin of safety, right? I mean, that's what you really need to do, and you respect that, and it's, you don't want to be singled out one-on-one with him. When it comes to trying to tackle him, you need to use the sideline. You need to use your buddies. It's difficult, but every team has a guy like that. Well, not every, but for the most part, you're always going to have a leading receiver that is super fast, super good at what he does. So, but with Tyreek, with his speed, you definitely have to be aware of that. And the defensive coaches know that, and so they're going to script it such, right? And you're going to give him respect, and you might, the safety might lean his way a little bit, and the linebacker might, underneath coverage might, sink towards him a little bit more. So you're aware of it for sure. You can't necessarily be in awe because, hey, listen, we all, we're all good athletes, and we need to bring them down. So you can't get overly focused on it, but certainly it's in the back of your mind that, hey, you got to respect that. You need to respect the speed, respect his ability to run, and lean towards them, and everybody on the defense is aware of that. So, I mean, that's really what you have to kind of do. As far as who I face, my God, Jerry Rice. I mean, Randy Moss. I mean, I played in Detroit and had to face him. My God. So there was a lot. Keyshawn Johnson. Right. There was so many. Wayne Corbett. I mean, there was, Duper. There was so many good wide receivers that, they were all good for the most part. Yeah. But, Randy Moss was such that he just had that blazing speed and just such an athlete. I remember one time me and the corner kind of got screwed up on a coverage, and, they would never have me take Randy Moss when I was in Detroit. And I ended up getting Randy Moss one-on-one at I had like a 6-yard cushion. As soon as he saw that I had him one-on-one, he lifted it, he raised his hand, and the ball was gone. It was a touchdown. So those are the things that I remember. I mean, that sticks in my mind, that entire play. So certainly, there was a lot of good wide receivers out there, but yeah, Tyreek is definitely special. I mean, he's done it, and he's quick and he's a playmaker.
Yeah.
So that's got to be kind of a helpless feeling right there, right? When you see the guy raise his hand and you're like, oh no, oh no.
Very deflating, because I wasn't catching him. That's for sure.
Yeah. God, what a moment that would be. What
you practiced? Did you practice against BB? Did you play with him for a year?
Yeah, no, we would. Yeah, so I didn't start. So I played 10 years. So I only started 7 of the 10. But the first 3 years I was kind of on the scout team and also, played third down. So when it came to going against the offense, our second stringers would play scout team, so to speak. So yeah, I was going against BB a lot because he was on the other side of the ball during practice, and yeah, his speed was insane. Like he was legit, like had a motor.
Yeah, he had a funny story. He was on with us, and he knew he was fast. He set a record at the combine, but his first, I
didn't know that.
Yeah, he didn't know it either until he went back a few years later, and they told him that he had the record with Dion. And
Bill Polian gave him the stopwatch, right? That he timed him on.
Yeah, he still has
the stopwatch. Don still has the stopwatch that Bill Polian
That's so cool.
Yeah, and the only person who broke it was Chris Johnson, the running back for the Titans in 2001.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, he was super fast. Yeah.
But he admitted
that's
that he had
interesting.
trouble getting off the line in this first minicamp practice. He correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, how he phrased this, but he went up against Nate Odoms, and Nate Odoms challenged him to, and he had trouble. Like Nate Odoms,
Yeah, he said
couldn't
Nate
do
Odoms
it.
kind of punked him, and
Yeah.
he ended up having to try. He sought out martial arts lessons.
Yeah,
to
sought
try
out
to get
martial
off
arts lessons.
to get off the line of scrimmage. And then the next season during the first mini, he asked to line up against Nate on the first play.
Yeah.
And beat him long.
Well, and he put up his fist to Jim Kelly like, I'm going long. Everyone knows it. I don't care. And he beat him, and Nate was like, okay, there you go.
I feel like we need to get Nate on to get his version of the story, because there's no film of this. So, but you never know whether Don might have been exagerating a tad. We don't know.
He's a straight shooter.
He is a straight, but maybe we need Nate on to see if there's a little balance in this story.
Yeah. But corners are very confident, so I think he might get a different story on that.
That's funny. So yesterday's game, Josh, you mentioned here earlier the Tim Tyndale game, only because they made such an impression. Yesterday, I don't know how it's always going to be known as the Nyheim Hines.
The Nyheim Hines game.
Yeah,
yep.
How could it not? Right? There are games where certain people maybe come up unexpectedly and make plays that are just signature plays. I was thinking the Kansas City playoff game last year probably should have been called the Gabe, if not for those stupid 13 seconds, would be called the Gabe Davis game.
Right.
Touchdowns.
Did you ever have a game like that, Bert? Do you have a game where you felt like you just couldn't do anything wrong?
You made 3. I remember you had a 3 interception game. It's the opposite of the dirty jock game, by the way.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I had a good game against the Chicago Bears, and truth be told, they weren't that great then. And I think it was Cade McNown, who was the quarterback, I think it was his first year, and I stole 3 from him. And so that was one of those games where I was seeing the ball, I was seeing everything, and it probably helped that I think at the time he was a rookie quarterback. So that was, I think I got NFC Player of the Week or something. So that was a good game. Played well, and
awesome.
But again, it was there should be an asterisk next to it, right? Because a rookie quarterback is fresh meat. So.
Well, my namesake, as they call it, over in San Francisco.
Brock Purdy.
I was at the dentist this morning, and he was like, "Hey, how about that Brock Purdy? Is it your cousin?" No, oh my God. He's playing pretty well.
What a tough spot this weekend if Schuerfield has to play for Miami. If Tua and Teddy Bridgewater can't come back, I can only imagine what that scene will be like for the Miami quarterback. A rookie or second guy, only first couple starts playing here. Did you play here as a Lion?
I did not. I think we just had like a preseason game against Buffalo in Detroit. So no, I didn't. I just played 2 years in Detroit. No, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I could just imagine as a rookie coming in here for a playoff game, that's going to be a tough spot for that kid. Like what a
I think so.
Yeah,
let's hope so.
Yeah, right. Do you have any? Too bad for your Lions, by the way. Last night, they're so much fun to watch, and I loved the effort they gave, and Coach Campbell throwing that. I don't know if you saw the end of the game. He had that little hook and ladder play to get the first down at the end of the game. I love them. Fun.
I did. I watched a bit of it, not all of it, but just some of the highlights. And yeah, it was cool. Obviously, it was good for the West Coast people that are Seattle Seahawks fans. All my buddies were like, "Oh yeah,
that's right."
So
that's right.
But good for Detroit. Yeah, right. So yeah, no, it was a good game. Good. I respect Dan Campbell and what he's done, and boy, he's turned it around. It seems like so that's good. They're headed in the right direction at least.
Absolutely. Do you have a prediction for the game on Sunday before we let you go here?
Oh gosh, I'm horrible at predicting. Let's just hope is there snow in the forecast by any
No,
chance,
it's actually as of now, knock on wood, I saw 31 and partly cloudy.
I'll look that up. I believe you, Josh.
Okay. Well,
I don't think weather's going to be a factor. Yeah, I don't think weather's going to be a factor.
Okay, cool. Well, no, listen, I think they came out on a high yesterday, and I feel like they're going to continue to roll, and it's hard for me to think otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel so too. It says 30 and It looks like sun, maybe. I don't. I
Yeah,
haven't
the
seen
sun.
that in a
Yeah, the
while.
sun. Yeah, what is that? What is the sun? Yeah. So
I'll believe it when I see it.
yeah, that's great. So love to have you come back on at some point when do kind of like a longer form interview with you and hear about your story. And we like to ask the guys when they were drafted, like memories of draft day and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we would love to do it, Kurt.
My pleasure.
You're a fan favorite. You're a class act, and I know you're busy, so I really appreciate you jumping on.
Appreciate
with us
it, Don.
and add a ton to the show. Great seeing you.
All right, man.
Thanks,
You
Kurt.
too. Go
Thanks,
Bills.
Kurt. Go
All right.
Bills.
All right. Bye.
Excellent.
All right. Well, we're gonna stick around here for a while, and
Is Chris Kepner on there?
yeah, he's with us here.
Is he
for a
lurking
little
in the
bit.
shadows?
He's lurking in the
All
shadows.
right, I'm gonna bring him out.
So we're gonna. Kurt was great. Obviously a couple of glitchy Wi-Fi issues, but it happens. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yep, that's me, just lurking in the shadows, watching.
Lurking in the shadows. I could get a little bit of real-time reaction. I can see a smile on your face when somebody says something, funny. I need to know more about Don's basketball career going forward. Or I think we're gonna need to get. Did any other former players play? Didn't you tell me you played a game with Jason Kidd one time?
Yeah, I was at a basketball camp in the Adirondacks to play against. That was crazy.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that he just was ridiculous.
He just the thing is, I know this is a football show, but we had a staff game where staff that Roy Berkeley was there, some guys.
Pete
Metzlars came, right. It came. He really enjoyed it, but playing with Jason Kidd, like you might not think you're open, but you're open. If you're ahead of your guy by a fraction, look out because that ball's going to hit you in the temple if you're not like it just all of a sudden. So you get. I remember he hit me like right up the side of the head, and I kind of rolled off and was able to finish. But it's such a level to watch professional athletes do what they do.
Even just being around professional athletes, even like this is going to sound ridiculous, but even like in the cafeteria. Or like when they eat, like they just do everything smoothly. Like there's just a fluidity to them, and then you could always tell who the athlete was and who the staff member was, right? They carry themselves differently.
Right.
There's confidence there. There's a physical confidence there, and that doesn't surprise me. Kurt just hopping into a pickup league basketball game and just dominating defensively.
I mean, see Kurt, he's
an everyman.
In a crowd,
looks like an everyman.
But it was hilarious. It was just like the guy was so frustrated. And
it's even better that he didn't recognize him.
Yeah,
because then this guy's like, oh, this lockdown guy. Yeah, that's a fantastic story. So Chris, like, let's talk a little bit yesterday. I mean, obviously everybody knows the scene there and all. I was gonna ask Don, is that the best regular season Bills game of all time now?
It's in the conversation.
Most emotional. Clearly
most emotional. I couldn't believe. I mean, they said there's been 4 kickoff returns in the league all year, and you get one to start the game. You get a second one. So again, this will be the Naheem Hines game, known as that forever. Carlton Bailey was another name I want to remember.
Carlton Bailey game,
1991. The Carlton Bailey game is really the pick 6 he had from the 10-yard line of Stelway to win the game 10-7 or 13.
10-7.
But my fear yesterday was, and naturally and rightfully so, the roof came off the place in the crowd and on the sideline. I saw tears from guys on TV, and then the defense came out, made a stop, and I just kept thinking to myself, okay, don't let that play be the highlight of the whole season. Yeah. Right. There's a lot of football to be played. There's 59 minutes and 44 seconds to play. And not just this game, like going on. And they took business. New England hung around. They were stubborn. But Josh, it's a conversation for one of, not the greatest regular season games. Sure.
I kind of felt that same way. Did you, Chris? Like I worried after, the Bills punted and then New England went down and scored. It felt like there was going to be a little lull. It's like when a team in basketball comes out and they get a 15-point lead right off the bat, and then you can't maintain that level of intensity the entire game. What was your reaction to that play? And then obviously, just going forward, settling into it turned into a regular football game.
Yeah, it was certainly that kickoff return was one of the best moments, at least in recent memory, for the Bills. That was with everything that off the field that was connected to it, right? And the sort of collective sigh of relief. There was just such Aaron Quinn called it a pressure valve release on the post game show. You could feel it. I mean, the crowd just went absolutely nuts, and it just, because it was such an emotional week, with Damar Hamlin being in the hospital and just tracking his recovery. Having something like that happen right off the bat was a huge lift. And like you said, there was it's tough to sustain that level of intensity. And there was a little bit of a lull, but then you saw the guys get locked in and more workmanlike, which is a word that I think I heard used to describe the first matchup between the Bills and the Patriots. They got the job done. The offensive stats might not have looked as impressive as some other games, but a lot of that has to do with those 2 kickoff return touchdowns.
Yeah,
I mean,
Tony
has it over
Tony
200
Romo.
yards returning.
I love watching and listening to Tony Romo, because a lot of times Tony Romo is able to verbalize things that I'm thinking, and they flash that stat on the screen where, the Bills 195 yards of kick return yards and then 170 yards of offense. And to me, that's always such a stupid stat, because the kick return yards prevent you from having the offensive yards. Like, you've given up a possession because you scored a touchdown on the kick return yards. Like,
Yep.
it
keeps your defense on the field longer. You saw New England had a higher time of possession, so it stands to reason like the defense was worn down a little bit more and maybe gave up more than they normally would have if the offense had been on the field more.
Yeah, one of those things that kind of betray some analytics or advanced statistics. Those plays are unicorn plays, and to have 2 of them in the same game will flip entire narrative, of the game and of the stats.
Yeah, you on the last show a week ago, Chris, you kind of wrapped things up by saying you could envision a range of scenarios where either the Bills are more worn out than they realize, maybe not mentally quite ready as they hope to be, or just bouncing off the walls, going, no, just blowing out. You can envision a scenario anywhere in that range. And I would say the way things played out was on the higher positive end of that range.
Yeah, like we talked about last week, I mean, if you had to pick whether they were going to be motivated by the situation or sort of muted, I guess, in their attitude just because of everything else going on, I would have picked the higher end. And you saw that they're just too good. I mean, talent wise, it's tough to keep this team down.
Absolutely, yeah. It bursts and explosions. We're having a couple of choppy Wi-Fi issues with you, Chris. Kind of like we did with Kurt. So maybe we'll just I'll just probably talk maybe for the 10-15 minutes. We're getting that little clicky thing that we had before.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. We'll talk later on in the week, I'm sure.
It could, if it's on our end, we'll get it figured out. But,
Get the intern on it.
Chuck.
So somebody just put on here, the tree said that I was at the 51 Street beatdown of the LA Raiders. So I guess kind of big picture and kind of what we do here and what's kind of fun. So that Bills Miami playoff game in 1990 was, at that point, obviously the AFC Championship game against Cincinnati 2 years before was the biggest game. This was probably the biggest home game in Bills history to that point, right? 44-34. The 90 playoff game against Miami.
Yeah, I mean, the regular season game was a couple before, and then it just obviously got ramped up even more in a playoff game.
What are your 3 favorite Bills regular season plays of the time? Because the kick return, the 2 kick returns yesterday are going to be in the top 10, 15, 20 Bills history.
Oh,
during the drought, give me like 3 good drought Bills plays.
Well, I think it was 2011. We were 2-0. England came 2-0, of course. New England went up 21-3 in the first half. We just kind of Fitz and guys like David Nelson and Steve Johnson stuff. They just chipped away. I think we tied them, so it's kind of a tie between. They were picked by Drayton Florence, where Brady to dump over the middle to Edelman or whoever, and it hit Darius' helmet, bounced up. Florence caught it. It was like 6. I think we the lead at that point, and that was like 1. And then 1 in the same game was we ball to, I think we tied.
Yeah, Fred Jackson, right?
And Fred Jackson got his little dump over the middle, and he took down to the 1 and went down so that we could milk clock and have Ryan Lindell kick the game-winning field goal with no time. It's such a smart play.
And Bill Belichick had him down on the sidelines because it was at timeouts. I really remember. It was probably the best Bills drought game, right?
I would say so.
Yeah,
it has to be.
A couple of memorable plays. Yesterday felt like one of those games that you'll remember 20 years from now.
Oh, no question.
30 years from now, 40 years from now.
No question. And then let's say the scenario out where, see where the Bills finally win. I mean, they will. They had, like you said, they've had a good season up until this point. Losses have been close. You can point to a play there, losses that could have flipped around. But still, I mean, you're looking up at the Chiefs and want to position yourself in what that game did yesterday. Mostly just to show ready to play after what happened to DeMar Hamlin. Secondly, that if you do end up playing the Chiefs for whatever it's worth, it's not going to be at Arrowhead.
Yeah. Let's power rank where we would want to see that game. Because the neutral site game, they announced that they're out for whatever reason. And Detroit is
an event.
Okay, and Detroit is ripping their field up, and they're replacing that infamous field that unfortunately claimed Von Miller earlier this year.
Right.
So those are out. It leaves Chicago, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, maybe like Nashville. Those are probably the 4 viable candidates. I don't know if it's out there anywhere or any talk there.
Washington, maybe.
No. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying it's a possibility.
I think Chicago. I think Chicago is the first choice for me. What an amazing scene would be.
Yeah, Soldier Field.
Field, cold. I mean, it's going to be last week, and I bet it would be like a 50-50 split. How about if you had to coordinate travel for that? That would be interesting, huh?
Yeah. I mean, the travel would be kind of straightforward. I mean, in terms of getting the team there and getting them in a hotel, but who gets to just split the tickets 50-50 or probably 40 in the league, 10% or something like that.
That's how the Super Bowl works.
Yeah, and there'd probably have to be a lottery from season ticket holders based on seniority to see who gets the opportunity.
That'd be a nightmare to be in the ticket office.
Yes, it would. That would be a flashback or a throwback to the days that we had there.
You know what? How do Super Bowl tickets work?
Super tickets. Okay, when I was there, not that it has changed, but each team gets 40% of the stadium, and then the league got 20. So on the 40%, there was a lottery based on seniority.
Okay.
So the more years if you had tickets for 20 years, you get 20 ping pong ball virtual thing. You had them for 1 year. One.
Do you have any Super Bowl ticket memory stories? Like
we had some people really upset that their odds were for them getting tickets and they didn't.
Yeah.
I was there first game, the rock pile, and my grandfather, and how can I not?
I've known Wilson my whole life. Yeah, totally. I totally see that.
Yeah. Again, being annual the way they sold was
how about
so hard.
So how about for the players? So the regular season's over.
Mm-hmm.
Their paychecks are you get paid 1/18th your salary, right?
Right.
Do they get paid on the week?
Yep.
Okay, so the contract was split 1/18th, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 1/17th when you were there, 1/18th now. Now what happens to playoffs? Do they get nothing until the playoff bonus?
Yeah. I don't know how they're paid, but they'll receive the player share. A couple years ago, you went over that, and they were up like.
It's at least $250,000 if you win the Super Bowl. But so this, if they win Sunday, they will not receive a paycheck week, correct?
I don't know.
Well, sorry, there's a joke in there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to you up for that question. That might make Twitter where I was in this position.
So I was, but it was, when I was, we were making the playoffs those years, we got bonuses ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why it was hard for me. And I didn't do a very good job of it sometimes, but watching games, I mean, they meant so much, you were there as just being part of it, but you also, there was a, financial gain to be had. Places that were, you got used to them.
Yes. And I think people might not realize that the non-players probably aren't paid as much as people might think. There's a ton of money in the NFL, but if you're a staff member, at least from my own experience, it's not as lucrative as you might think. And I was reminded more than on one occasion that there are 100 people who would want this job. So, you were never compensated.
That got leveraged.
Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely did. And those playoff bonuses were huge.
Yeah.
And when I was in the merchandise department in 98, like losing that first round game, that sucked. Like that hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt because not that you were banking on that money, but it was available and you knew it was there. So your fate was tied in with that.
And there's only so much you could, your job, but you couldn't really directly help. But you just reminded me of another player game, the flu game.
Jacksonville.
That's right.
Yep.
That the bootleg
that is,
happened,
that is one of the probably the 10 most important plays in Bills history.
Given the 98, the team, if they didn't sell enough Sweet Club seats that year, they
wouldn't be here.
They were going to move.
They wouldn't be here. Yeah, that play.
Yep.
Yes, you and I watched that play together in the first escape of the M&T Club or whatever it's called now. And I remember that play vividly coming. I think right at us. Came right at, and you could see developing. And that's me because that is, people know the playoff. But like I was thinking on the way to your house this morning, and I'm like, what are the really famous regular season plays? The Flutie play is right up there. That's a great call.
Yeah. Well, you just said 98 made me think of it, but so I'm glad you did because it clearly, boy, that had more implications than just turning that season around and making the playoffs in 98 where we, made a run and what was that? Tennessee, I think.
No, lost to Miami.
Here we go again. Miami.
That was the game, and that was that Miami playoff game. If those would have pulled it out, would have been known as the Eric Moulds game. He had over 200 yards receiving in that game, and the Bills still lost. They got down to like the 3-yard line.
Dude, he got sacked
late, and he got sacked. Trace Armstrong, I think. I don't know. Remember that? Were you there?
I was not at that game. It's funny because later years when I was doing the pictures, coach's booth, they show that every game. They showed Ken Dorsey.
Yes.
And that front row, then there's a second row where we were doing the pictures was just behind that.
Okay.
We were out of camera view, not that we had our backs to it because we were watching a computer just like this. But when you go into that booth in Miami, there's a giant framed picture of Trace Armstrong sacking Doug Flutie
on that play.
Oh,
interesting.
You can't. It's huge.
Okay.
It's just like
they're
okay.
Well, they ended up. The next week, they got destroyed by Jacksonville. I think that was 62-7.
Yeah,
and that was that Dan Marino's last game.
It was either Marino and or Jimmy Johnson's last game.
It was, but then they replaced him with Dave Wannstedt. They got absolutely demolished by Jacksonville. Made me feel better for the tough loss because the 98 season. I mean, the Bills defense was fantastic. And everything had built from the Flutie game. And you felt that was like the last time you felt like they were kind of team of destiny. Here's Doug Flutie and it's Flutie magic and Flutie flakes and Flutie mania and all that.
You're right. And then mentioning Jacksonville, I know we're all over the place here, but it's playoff time. And I mean, things are just so energized and you have these flashbacks of memories about the playoffs. But and this is a negative one for sure. Talk about last games, but Jim Kelly's last game was a playoff game at home in 96. The second year Jacksonville Jaguars came in, I would bet my house on that. There was no way we were going to lose that game. And Jeff Burris gets his pick 6 in the quarter. We're 7. Forget about it. It's over. But Mark Brunell and Leon Means, they just kept pounding the ball. What is this?
Keenan McCordell and Jimmy Smith were their receivers.
Oh,
that's kind of a talking about this game coming up. So Vegas put him a 10.5 point favorite. Okay. The feeling is if Tua doesn't play, which I sincerely, as a human being, I hope Tua doesn't play.
Right.
the Bills are going to be prohibitive. And it's going to ask you the mood around the building if you lose a game like this. You know, the entire season, the entire narrative since July, and that Jacksonville playoff game was one of the more shocking losses. And then they ended up, ironically, going the next week, defeating the Elway Broncos.
Yeah.
What was even more upset, I think they were like 16-point underdogs in that game.
I'm sure.
And
you're right.
A bunch of crazy plays. So around the building today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday. Just what's it like?
It's we talked. It's well. First of all, this is more than just one game. The players and coaches will never say that. Like John Allen, I heard yesterday in postgame, hey, we have a series of one-game seasons coming up. Doesn't matter how we win them. You just have to win them. You just have to score more points. Because they were talking about, does it concern you that it took two, intercept or kickoff returns to essentially make up the margin of victory? And he's like, well, no. He said, we all want to play better, but we'll take the win however we can get. And it's true, but it's you dread the thought of the season not continuing when you know you have a team, as we've talked about all year with 1990 and this team and the comparison. They're built. I mean, you had the Chiefs beat last year, and in one of the more, I don't know, I call it fluky a little bit. I mean, I suppose you give them some credit for pulling off those two plays, but by all, what was the probability at that point? You know what I mean? For the Bills,
95, 96%.
Sure, you just can't fathom it. So you want to make sure that the team is, everything feels normal for them, that they're comfortable, and that they're just preparing the way they should, and they're not.
What would you be doing as the director of football administration if you had been in the playoff? What would you be doing this week?
Well, my work, a lot. It doesn't sound exciting, but with the player injuries and. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
It would have been real. Can you make at all the payments and everything for that? But looking ahead to travel, you have to assume that you're going, like we mentioned before, that you're going to travel for the AFC Championship game.
Did you have a road team at all ever in their travel?
Yeah.
Like so.
Oh no,
you didn't have it all.
No, we didn't, and when Randy Woody Wibbett from the equipment told that they actually kind of helped the other team a little bit, at least some tips. That kind of surprised me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Yeah, it's a competitive.
Like a brotherhood.
I didn't know whether travel arrangements or whatever would rise above the level of competitiveness.
If the team called, and I don't recall how often this happened, but if team called and said, hey, do you have any advice? And they would do it in such a way as not to expect you to bend over backwards to do it for them. But yeah, there was a level of camaraderie around the league where you would do the decent thing and just,
sure. You never know if you might need it.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was pretty rare. But you just didn't want to make it too easy.
Sure. Of course. Well, absolutely. You don't want to give them any type of competitive advantage or anything like that. So it would be, it's got to be excitement, but nervous. And I guess selfishly, like our podcast and for all of the people around here, we know you just don't want it to end.
No,
like, that's what struck me at the end of the Kansas City game last year, is that I was sad that the ride was over. And it's jarring when it's just over. Guys, because that collection of players will never be together and all that, they lot clean outs 2 days after the season's over.
Yep.
And then
meetings, one-on-ones with the head coach, and they express, answer every question. How could we make things better? What are you going to do in off season? If you're this year's Jacksonville Jaguars, and you lose this week, you could be like, hey, isn't it great we made it that far? And look what a bright future we have. But the 2022 Buffalo Bills are no.
Right.
This team has a hope, expectation of being and winning the Super Bowl.
What do you have any memories of Marv Levy or John Butler or Bill Polian during a playoff week, or Mr. Wilson?
I haven't told the story before in our podcast. So, and I was going to save it if we got to the when we get to Super Bowl week, but
we'll tell it again.
Ready for this? This is I'm going to drop one right here.
Okay.
The last person to address the Buffalo Bills before Super Bowl 28 to going to Atlanta was me.
Okay.
As a group.
In the traveling
to Atlanta.
Were you giving them seat assignments, or were you giving them the Rudy speech?
Here's what it was not a speech. It was supposed to happen.
Okay.
So I'm in my office. Okay.
Yep.
And
now, what is your position at this time?
I was a business manager.
Okay. So
we were very small.
Yeah. So everybody knew you were.
Yeah. Yep. They knew who I was. And I'm in my office, and John Butler comes storming in my office, and he looked.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. He was a scary man.
He's in scary mode. Okay. And he's like, "Hey, why am I hearing that the players don't know where to put their luggage?" And I'm like, and I said, "Well, Jim Verdorf and Bob, and they're not here, are they? They were already in Atlanta."
Okay.
And I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, then who's going to?" And there was no right answer to the question other than
sure. Yes.
He goes, "The team meeting ends in 15 minutes. When that's over, you're going to be there to tell them where to leave their luggage." Gosh, I had no idea where they were supposed to leave their luggage.
Right. This is not right.
No. So fortunately, in the office next door was Mary Piavotic. She was Bill Musson's administrative assistant.
Okay.
She heard the whole thing because
you could hear him every sure.
And she said, so he left. Yes, sir. I just was like ready to panic.
Right. I don't.
First of all, I had to find out where they were supposed to leave their luggage.
And no cell phone back then.
No
quick way to get hold of anybody.
No, there were cell phones, but I didn't have one. But the guys in Atlanta that did, but it was still spotty. So Mary's like, "I did this. I know everything. I'll give you a memo that they should have read."
Oh.
But when Troy Vincent was with us, he said, "If you ever keep anything from the players, put it in writing and put it on the rocker stools because we don't read anything."
Yeah, funny. Yeah.
So she said, "Here's where the luggage needs to go."
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay. So I go downstairs, and there's a team meeting room in the locker room, and I can hear. The door's closed. I can hear Marv say, "This is the fourth time now."
Yeah.
We're going,
yeah.
"They're going to tell you don't belong. They're going to tell you, you don't have a chance. But you know who you are. You know how hard it was to get here." And I'm thinking, I'm getting all pumped up. Like I would run through a wall.
Yeah.
And then now I'm to bust open the door and talk about luggage. So I'm like, and then do I go in now? Is he done? Or was it just like dramatic pause?
Hilarious.
So I'm waiting. I can feel the heartbeat. And listen, I hear what sounds like end rustling, like guys getting up. I bust open the doors, like, "Guys, wait!" And I'm looking, and it's Thurman and Bruce and Daryl and Jim. And, and what's he doing here? I said, "I've been told."
What the hell is Don doing here?
I said, "John Butler asked me to tell you that you are to leave your luggage next to the visitors' locker room outside in the tunnel will be picked up, and you'll have tags and it'll just be in it like for you." And they're like, "All right, cool."
Yeah.
And
it was like, nothing. It was nothing to them, right? It was everything to you, and it was probably one of the more terrifying moments of your life.
Oh yeah, and if you think about it, again, that was them as a group. That was the last time they were addressed by anybody. So to whatever extent I put them off the game or whatever.
Well, you got them the first half. They had to lead halftime.
Yeah.
So Dan, the lawyer game. Do you remember the lawyer game?
Excellent, Dan. That's a great call. He we kind of stolen or New England made a deal for Bledsoe, and then lawyer Malloy couldn't get a deal done with the Patriots, so he signed here the week of the opener, and we crushed him. And lawyer Malloy had like a pick and a I think, a sack and really made his presence felt. And we're like, here we go. All right.
Yeah.
That
was Sam Adams' return for a touchdown game.
Yeah.
And then Bills were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, I remember. And then ironically, you won't like this part of it. The Bills beat them 31-0 at the beginning of the year. In the last game of the season, the Patriots beat the Bills 31-0.
Reciprocated
to wrap
almost
up.
as like, if they could have made it 34-0, they would have done it. They just wanted that story to be remembered after all these years.
Your dislike of the drought era Patriots is fun. It's understandable.
It's red hot.
Did you
intense?
Did you feel any satisfaction knocking them out of the playoffs yesterday?
Of course.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though it allowed Miami in.
I'm making a prediction here, but Miami, I would have been more worried about Pittsburgh. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I was watching. I watched all the games yesterday. Pittsburgh, of the three, if Tua does play, Pittsburgh to me is the most complete of the three, and maybe the scariest of the three going forward. Let's bring Chris back in here before we finish.
I would like to do that. Could have been our Wi-Fi. I'm hoping. And thanks for sticking around, Chris. Maybe we figured it out.
If you had a choice, as you know, yesterday morning, who the Bills were going to play around, how would you ranked it and where it ended up?
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about with you guys. So I appreciate you bringing me back in. Yeah, I agree. I definitely would have chosen not to play Pittsburgh of the three teams.
Why is that?
Miami. So Miami, they finished the season by losing 5 of their last 6 games, and 4 of those losses were with Tua in the lineup. They're the number 27 offense in the last 5 games with Tua.
Wow.
27 offense, 21 overall pass offense with Tua.
That's shocking.
Without Tua, they've actually done better in the last 2 games in terms of their DVOA. Yeah, their offense is number 20. Their pass offense is number 13.
That's shocking.
So yeah, it's strange. And then compared to Pittsburgh, they won 6 of their last 7 games to close out the regular season. And over that stretch, they were the number 12 offense, the number 14 pass offense, the number 8 rush offense, and let's not forget the number 4 defense.
TJ Watt scares you.
TJ Watt is a game wrecker. Yeah, you don't want anything to do with that guy if you can help it. Miami has a decent defense too. They've been number 10 over the last stretch. But still, I think no matter what side of the ball you look at, Pittsburgh has been, at least over the last 7 games, they've been playing much better than Miami.
Yeah. What Pickett when he played here for his first game, like he passed the eye test. Like he's like, this guy doesn't look like a rookie. He's poised and doesn't look too rattled out there.
Not exactly the number 2 quarterback. I don't know if you guys saw that PFF put something out that Tua was Kenny Pickett was like the number 2 graded quarterback over a stretch there, but it was crazy. It was you don't want to follow that stat because there was nothing to back that up.
Is there some early buzz? Like, what are you hearing about Tua playing?
I haven't really heard much, honestly. I think that I'd say it's 50-50 right now because we just don't know. He gave a press conference recently where he talked about, to be honest with you guys, I get the feeling, and this is just speculation, but I get the feeling that he's being coached as if he should play regardless of the, how smart that is from a medical perspective. And it's a sense that I get from how Miami has dealt with the situation throughout the year. But then in the comments that Tua made in this press conference, he was talking about how quarterbacks are less susceptible to longer term effects from repeated concussions than players who take constant head contact, like linemen or running backs, for example. And then he closed that out by saying, at least that's what I'm being told.
Oh, wow.
Qualifier. Yeah.
God, just as a human, you would think the NFL, boy, what a bad look if he ends up on Highmark Stadium Field with a third concussion.
I'm suspicious of the Miami organization.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Well, you have every right to be. I mean, they got fined a first pick, and I just as a human being, and especially after what we saw last Monday night, I cringe at the idea of him playing right now, because it just more would be life altering. It'd probably be life altering for him. And their road to the Super Bowl is so daunting. They're going to come here and win. They're going to go in 80, and then they're going to win in Cincinnati. Okay, good luck, right? Like, I don't know. You don't necessarily want to judge it by just that, but wow, that's a tough ask of a guy to put his long-term, health at risk for that road.
I don't know if it's just physical stature or something, but to me, all the hits I see take, he gets taken down like a rag doll. Maybe, you're just so used to watching Josh Allen, guys trying to bring him down, and they're kind of hanging on him. Rarely does he just take a lick and go down hard, unless he's actually moving forward. Tua just gets slammed to the ground, and then the very last thing that happens is the head hits the turf again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not funny, but somebody, I don't know if there's a way to kind of teach him how to fall more effectively, I guess, like, so that because you see, like, his head just slams, the back of his head slams into the turf, and I don't know if there's something you can do as you're being tackled to sort of break that fall in a way to sort of redirect the contact, but if there is, someone needs to show him how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like Flutie was small, but you just don't remember him taking those kind of hits. He did.
There is a skill. There is a skill to taking a hit and to avoiding a hit. There's the guys that are slippery enough to kind of wiggle away, and Stephon Diggs kind of annoyed me yesterday when he ran out of bounds with like 4.5 minutes left, and he is really good at avoiding contact, avoiding the big hit. Yesterday, I didn't like when he ran out of bounds under the 5-minute mark. That's just a big pet peeve of mine.
I said we cut him.
Yeah, but I just right, Chris. Like, you can look at guys, not just quarterbacks, but there are guys. Tyreek Hill is really good at avoiding heavy contact, and then there are other guys who just absolutely are not.
I remember when Reggie Bush was in the league the first couple of years, and he had a way of avoiding contact at the end of runs. And I remember John Madden really didn't like it. He called the game where Reggie Bush is playing. He's like, just lower your shoulder and take the guy down. And it's like, I mean, that's sort of the old school way of looking at it, right? But Reggie Bush would sort of take that. He would take that, a yard and a half, 2 yards by like diving in the space, next to the guy's feet instead of taking the contact. And I mean, I think Diggs, you're right. He's great at it. He also picks his spots, right? At the beginning of that Cincinnati game last week, you saw him absolutely run over someone.
That's true.
So he knows when he needs to set the tone, and he also knows when he needs to protect himself.
There was some speculation about, I think it was GR, where they talked about that play, and then they presumed that Higgins and the Bengals also took note of that play, and then Higgins was kind of like, "Oh yeah, so I can play physical too as a receiver." And
interesting, lower the shoulder.
It's speculation, but it was a physical game. But just like, hey, your receivers can play physical. We could not, and to suggest in any way that he was trying to, hurt Damar Hamlin in any way. Obviously, it was such a freak injury, but still, it was
I'm gonna
like
be on the
lightning strike freak injury, right?
Yep.
Like, it's so rare that you wouldn't expect guys to stop, to change the way that they approach the game necessarily as a result.
Let me put on the spot here, Chris, before we go. Give me the one team that wins next weekend that is not favored.
The Giants.
Ooh, okay. I feel like that's kind of the sexy underdog, right? Like, everybody hates Minnesota.
It's a 6 out of 3, right? Yeah.
The thing about Minnesota is they are they're like near the bottom of the league in DVOA, and their win total, it just doesn't match the underlying analytics you know, I don't know. They've gotten out of it, whether they've gotten lucky in games or what, but and their point differential too. I can't remember. I remember looking at this a few weeks ago, and they had one of the worst point differentials in a long time for a team that has the type of record they do. I don't know. I haven't tracked it since then to give you an update on it, but I don't
remind
think
me of a hockey. Yeah, they remind me of a hockey team, Chris, that wins because the goalie's hot, and they outshot like 45-21, and you're like, how did they win this game? Minnesota's on borrowed time, it feels like, for a long time, and it's either one of those things where everything breaks them all year long, and they go on this crazy run, and it just doesn't stop, or the regression to the mean hits them hard, and you're like, they're out Sunday.
in the last 7 weeks, guys, they are the number 29th team in overall DVOA. Just to give you an idea, that's not good. So yeah, I think they're the most vulnerable of the favorite teams.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let you go here, Chris. We're gonna wrap up, and we'll probably see you later on in the week, because we're gonna do this again. During this playoff week and going forward. As long as the Bills are alive and making a.
Cool.
Great. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. Appreciate you.
All right, Don. Before we go, who is your one team? Who is your one non-favorite? And you can't use Minnesota. You can't use Giants.
Not all their favorite. I will see. I will see this. I'm kind of apples and oranges to your question, but I'm afraid the winner of the Jacksonville Chargers game could be a sleep danger team. The Chargers are kind of getting at the right time, kind of like the Steelers were. I think we're lucky to make playoffs for reasons that Chris mentioned, but I can see that. I guess what I'm saying is it's not this week, but the Chargers were to advance. I can see them upsetting.
Their most likely opponent would be, they could play the Bills as well.
They both win.
Well, so it reseed, and my pick, obviously, I think if Lamar is healthy, the Ravens match really well against the Bengals. I think it's really hard to go play Baltimore again. In 7 days later. Baltimore rested almost everybody yesterday. They played hardly anybody. Mark Andrews didn't play. Half their offense didn't play.
Yeah, they got Dobbins too, right?
Didn't even play their backup quarterback. They played their third string quarterback, who wasn't good. And I feel like the Ravens beat them early in the year. Cincinnati got to a big yesterday, whatever else. But then Baltimore hung around. Baltimore always hangs around.
Yeah, they do.
It's ugly. They got the best kicker in football. I feel like they could win. If they do win and the Bills win, then Bills would play the winner of Jacksonville and LA, and then the Chiefs would play. The Chiefs will end up playing the lowest seed remaining after the front.
Yes.
So you're right. The Chargers are scary. Chargers are the team that you would want to play the Chiefs too.
Yeah, they know each other,
but that means that Bills would have to play the Bengals. Which I would rather play. I'd rather play the Chargers or the Jaguars than the Bengals. Right, like that's pretty.
Yeah, the Bengals.
The Bengals scare me. The Bengals scare me more than the Chiefs.
Yeah,
I would rather play the Chiefs than the Bengals.
Yeah,
personally.
And going back to Monday night, just in those first two drives.
Yeah, they're explosive. They have weapons. They have the ability to move the ball in a way that right now Bills are shaky at defending.
Yeah.
Anything else before we go here?
No, like I said, we're gonna ramp things up and. Keep talking about it during the week.
Yeah, we're gonna have a couple of behind the scenes guys coming on the next phase. We're gonna talk about what it's like at the stadium. Don never really shared some of the stories about like restocking the stadium for merchandise. Early days. I know that you have someone coming on to like concessions at the stadium.
Oh yeah, Andy Altamore, the GM of Delaware North, is going to essentially tell us what it's like to try to feed 74,000 people in 3 hours.
Yeah. So
what it takes to prepare for it.
We're gonna have some kind of behind the scenes stuff, getting ready for the game, and then we'll have hopefully a couple more players and special guests coming out during the week. So we'll see a notification when we're gonna go live.
Stay tuned.
We're gonna run this. So we'll see everybody this week.
All right, go Bills.